Hey, welcome everyone. Hey, this is a podcast that explores various aspects of addiction, potentially focusing on personal stories of recovery, scientific perspectives, societal impacts, or related topics. This podcast often features discussions with experts, individuals in recovery, therapists, and advocates to offer insights and support to those affected by addiction or seeking more information about it. Welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. I'm your host, Al Richards, and today with our guest, and that's Wendy Lou Whoo. Is that correct?
Yes, that's my Facebook name is Wendy Lou
Awesome. Well, that's the one we're going to use, I guess. If that's good with you.
Whoo. That's great.
Okay. Well, Wendy, today, with our guest Wendy today, we're going to be talking about why I wasn't enough. Whew, and I know a lot of our listeners can really resonate with what's going to be discussed today. So, Wendy, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be with us. Greatly appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and and just thank you when when we kind of connected on social media and we got talking and learning a little bit more about one another and I like to say that my spirit talks to me all the time, and then all of a sudden my spirit said, "Ask her if she wants to be on the show." And here we are. We're on the show, so the spirit led us in the right direction as usual.
Yes, yep, I
So,
agree.
a lot of us have a lot of stuff that happens in our life. I went through things as a child, and I think the majority of us, don't want to put blame on our parents because our parents did the best that they could, just like us as parents have done the best that we could, where we make a ton of mistakes along the way because there is no manual on how to be an incredible parent. Because I don't think there is a such thing. We all mess up. However, sometimes when we mess up, it also affects us as children and how we view the world and things. And it's just not even on the parent side, it's things that happen outside, whether it's in school or whether another family member says something to us or does something to us. And that just sticks, that thorn sticks in our side, and it stays there all the way up into our adulthood. And we talked a little bit before the show about how, you just, even from a little girl, you just felt like you just wasn't enough for things. And so, can you share a little bit about that with us, please?
Yes. So I grew up in a very religious home, really pretty strict religious home. And I just, from what I learned in church and everyone around me, was just that if I followed everything, did everything right, life would work out. You find a man that believes this in the same religion as you, and it's going. You both follow that religion and put it first in your life, and things are going to work out, and you're going to live a happy life. And so I was always striving for that, but I never felt like I was enough. I felt like every time I would go to church or wherever, everyone was just doing so much and had these amazing spiritual experiences, and I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong because I was trying to do everything right and I wasn't having these experiences. And I always started putting that on myself, like, why am I not enough? What am I doing wrong? Like, I'm trying to do everything right. And so yeah, I just started having this belief that, why am I not enough? And then I got married young. I got married at 19, and we had our first baby at 21. And so we were following the religion and doing all of that. And I realized that my husband at the time wasn't really wanting to follow. I felt like the religion as much, but I felt like he believed. And so I kind of took on, like, I had to do extra because I wanted to get my family in the afterlife into the best place that we could possibly go. And so I put
Mhm.
that responsibility on myself more. And it was just, I could figure out still, what am I doing wrong? Like, why is this it became an argument in our marriage, kind of trying to stay on the path that we'd agreed to, and him he didn't want to follow that path. And it was this struggle in our marriage for a long time. And then about 13 years into our marriage, he came to me and told me he didn't believe in the religion and didn't want to practice it. um, and I really just respected him so much and loved him so much at that time that that's probably the only thing that I can think of that would have even made me question. Because I'd grown up, everyone I knew growing up was of the same religion. My family, my friends, my environment, and I just never had any reason to question. And so when he started was telling me he didn't believe, that was kind of like, well, maybe I've never even thought to question, so maybe I will question kind of it. And I went back to school and I was taking a lot of psychology and sociology courses because they were so interesting to me. And I started some of the things I was learning there about how we humans work and our brains, and kind of started, kind of realizing a little bit that maybe I needed to question, because I had been taught to follow. Don't question, follow. Don't. And so that was what I did. I didn't question anything. I followed my parents. I followed my religion. I followed my husband. I followed everything that I thought I was supposed, and didn't question things. And in a way, I was kind of gaslighting myself a lot throughout my life, because I would start to see the other side of things, but I would convince myself that I didn't want to, say, no, don't look at that. Don't stay here. You're not supposed to question. And so anyway, yeah, so it was just a rough time. But actually when I started questioning, and it was one of the happiest times of my life. I kind of finally felt like I was learning a little bit more about who I was, because I had no idea who I was. I was who I was supposed to be. Anyway, so when he told me that, I took a break and everything, and from my religion, and just kind of started doing at school and doing different things that I hadn't really done before. We started kind of experimenting with alcohol. We'd done just a little bit of experimenting when we were younger before getting married, but nothing much. And then we had like just started experimenting, and it was a really fun time. It was just drinking a little bit. We never got drunk. We didn't At the time, we didn't even believe you could get drunk. So because we were like, people are crazy. You can't get drunk. We just hadn't really drank enough. And then, so my ex he was in the military. And so we moved right uh, while I was going through that transition of leaving my religion. And so we moved to Virginia, and I left everyone I knew. And uh, at that time, he brought up the fact that he wanted to open our marriage up. And that was just devastating to me. I had never wanted to be with anyone else, and that was what I really reinforced the why am I not enough? Like, what is wrong with me that I'm not enough, that he wants other people? And it was a really, really rough time in my life. And um I wanting to be the good wife and compromise, and feeling like I never divorce was never on my radar. Like, I just never even considered that. I mean, I loved him, and our family, and I thought we'd always be together. And so I ended up starting to drink to be able to do some of the things that he wanted to do. And it just became a cycle of drinking to do things, drinking to deal with the things. And I just became very unhealthy in my drinking. And so then um years later, we moved back home to Utah with our kids. And I things were just not going well in the marriage, and I was not wanting to do any of the stuff outside of our marriage anymore. And I think I started to drink. Thought about it a lot. Like, I think I started to drink a lot so that we couldn't go out. We couldn't go do things, because I didn't want to be kind of manipulated into, or
Yeah.
or into
Kind of
doing things
tricked
that I
into it.
yeah, yeah. And so anyway, one night we had a really bad night, and I started drinking and just didn't stop. I drank like 3 days in a row, like heavily. And I made a post on Facebook that scared some of my friends. So they came and they picked me up from my house, and they took me to the hospital. And there I detoxed, and talked with they had a few different from different centers of addiction place of recoveries came and talked to me, and I decided to go up to Wasatch Recovery, and it was the best decision that I've ever made. Like at first, I couldn't imagine because I was really codependent with my husband and my family, and so being away from them, like going up and actually doing inpatient for a month seemed like something I couldn't do. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'll do outpatient. I went up the first day to outpatient, and I went in and met with the director, and she sat and with me, and she said, Wendy, if it were me and I could have 30 days to just work on myself, no distractions, no alcohol around, no anything, no just no temptations. And I could just go up and it's she said, this is a place where you just work on yourself. It's not there's therapy, but that we also do fun things. We do, and it's not just heavily, you're not going to just feel like you're constantly being therapy and too much. And it's a balance, and it's a balance on getting your whole life back in order. We do fitness, we do yoga, we do uh you know uh fun activities outside and whatnot. And just after talking to her, I thought, okay, she's right. This is a really good opportunity. And so I decided to go up and do the 30 days up away. And it was quite an experience. So I went in there thinking I was the biggest victim. And I was in for like a really big wake up call. So when you go in, and there's two big houses up there. We were in house one, and so we did everything together with that house. We had our own individual therapy, but we also and life coaching, but we did group therapy pretty much daily. And when you first got there, they give you a few times to go in to group therapy, and then when they felt like you were ready for it, they would process you. So you were kind of on the hot seat, and they would want to know your story and that. And I was like, oh, I'm just ready. I want to tell my story. I want to, and so I pushed to be, which they're like, no one ever wants to be on the hot seat. And I'm like, oh yes, I want to be on the hot seat. I'm ready. I'm such a victim. They're gonna all just be on my side, and so so they processed me, and I was definitely, in for a wake up call because I I blamed everything that I did on someone else. And at the end of the day, I made the choices. He did. And I remember one of my therapists in my personal therapy saying, did he hold a gun to your head, Wendy? And and of course I'm like, well, no. And he's like, well, then how did he make you do these things? And I was like, well, okay, I guess he didn't. He's like, you chose to do the things that you did. And so I was like, well, yes. So I had to take my own personal responsibility in the whole situation, even though I didn't, my brain was, I feel like because I wasn't taught to question and I wasn't taught a lot of these things, my brain didn't, in a sense, and this is just me, no one's ever told me this, but this is something that I felt, and my brain didn't develop past a certain point because I didn't grow. I didn't keep growing. I kind of stopped it. I stunted it. And I stayed at that stunted place for that entire time and so going to the recovery and rehab and getting that therapy was where my brain finally started to kind of, and it was so much confusion. I had layers and layers and layers of things to work through. And I was so confused. I remember just when I was on the hot seat, just crying because I couldn't figure out what they were saying. I couldn't figure out the answers they wanted. I was just so confused, and it was a really tough time then. And I remember like because we couldn't comfort each other. We needed each. It was kind of a rule that um we had to let the other person learn how to like could maybe self-soothe, be able to not the way the counselors kind of explained it was if they'd gone through a tough therapy session, they wanted us to go sit in they call it sit in our shit.
Hmm.
So kind of like we weren't allowed to like comfort, and it was like they needed to go and just have that time to really process what had just been said and everything, instead of us coming and going, oh, oh, it's okay. And they needed to go and have that time to really just think about everything that happened without us going, oh, don't worry about what they said. You're fine. Just because sometimes in comforting, we can kind of do that, try to make the person feel okay, but we take away some of what the counselors just did in the processing of
Yeah.
them and them having to think through it.
They end up playing the rescuer, which kind of helps the victim feel a little bit better to where it actually puts them in the same position as the rescuer
Yes,
in a way. Yeah.
yes, exactly that. And so I remember after, because my roommate was a woman. Well, of course, we had women roommates, but and she would tell me after, she's like, that was the hardest thing I've ever seen. She's like, it was so hard to not be able to come and comfort you because I was just so confused um by all of it. They were trying to help me see like kind of what was going on in my marriage, and the manipulation and those kind of things, and I didn't want to see it because I like tried to hide like even with the alcohol, I tried to like kind of gaslight myself out of seeing things that I didn't want to see. And so that was tough. Like, and I was feeling like I was a victim, but at the same time I was protecting um my ex-husband, like, and they couldn't get through to me. And all I wanted to do, I couldn't understand that I needed to work on myself. All I wanted to do was work on my marriage, and that was what I would say up there. And they were getting so frustrated with me, and I didn't understand it. And I didn't understand why at that time that I needed the work. And it didn't matter. Like, I had to figure out me and what I wanted and who I was and get healthy in myself before I could even think about anything outside of that. And I couldn't understand that. I'd been married for almost 25 years, and that was my everything at that point. And so I thankfully, the therapy that they gave me out there, and people have asked me before, they're like, how do I get a therapist like that? My therapist is, more of the like coddling and kind of, it helps in that not mine, but that's kind of what they've told me. They like others, not always, not every therapist, but some of my friends would say that when I go to my therapist, I feel like I'm just talking to a friend and I don't really feel like I'm doing as much. And so when I asked my therapist up there, I'm like, how do people get this? Because they were hard on me and I needed it. And
Mhm.
even though I was crying so much, I don't think anything could have broke through my shell if they hadn't been so hard and made me have to really question and think and question myself and not play victim. And they said, when you're up there, you don't get to pick your therapist and you don't have a choice. And when you're out in like the real world, the therapists there's so many choices. And if you don't like what a therapist tells you and you get upset and they make you feel bad, a lot of times people just go to a different therapist because they don't understand that they need that real not friend, not, I mean, of course, that you need kindness, but they're not your friend. They are actually there to really point out these things that you need to see. And it's easier for them to be able to do that up there because you didn't get to choose, and you were up there. And I don't know if any of that even matters. I don't know why I went into
No,
that.
no, it makes a lot of sense, Wendy. It really, it really does. Because I just finished my certification in April, and that was some of our training. That we're not there to tip people in the direction of where they're supposed to take their life. We're there just to ask questions to help get their brains turning, to start getting them to go in the direction it needs to go for them to figure out what it is that they need to figure out, right? Because it's inside them. Because I can't go inside your head and know exactly what all your feelings are and what you're thinking. However, just by listening to you and hearing what your answers are to certain questions, it's kind of like laying out those breadcrumbs, to get you to go, oh, here's another one. And then you're going, oh, I didn't think of this. And that cuddling part of stuff, that's another thing that was taught to us as well. Because all that does is, what word am I looking for? I guess it just soothes that person's pain, and it makes them feel like it's okay now to still be a victim, right? We're keeping them
Right.
in that
Kind of
category.
reinforcing. Yeah.
Yeah, we're reinforcing it when as hard as it is to stay away from that, because how can you open up as an individual if you're still stuck in that victim mentality?
Right. And it wasn't easy to get out of. I really had to understand, like, okay. And I cannot think of the word that they use, but it is like, I know I didn't want to do those things, like, but I did want to do them because of the what I got from that. Because if I didn't do that, I felt like I was going to lose my marriage. If I
Mhm.
did do it, I was keeping my marriage and I was keeping that security in my marriage. And so it was like I was getting, I was making the choice to do it even because if I was getting rewarded in a different way, doing something that I didn't want to do, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
um,
It's
yeah, so,
kind of like opening up a box of Cracker Jacks. Remember Cracker Jacks where it had the
oh yeah.
inside, and there was always a certain ring or something that I wanted, and I'd eat 4 boxes of those damn things just so I could finally find the one with the ring, and then I'd be sicker than hell afterwards. So it kind of reminds me of that, right? Because yeah, you're just looking for a certain satisfaction, I guess, if that's how you say it, to get what you want, but even though you know you're going to pay for it after the fact.
Oh yes, that's a very good example of it. Yeah. Yep. And even so I'm still, I see my still same therapist that, so when I actually went up to therapy or up to rehab twice. First time was me just kind of starting to crack my shell and my brain and open up to the fact that I needed to work on myself. And when I went back home to my marriage, things were not well and we separated and I ended up going back up to recovery, and it was such a different experience the second time. And I'm so grateful, like, for all of it. It changed my life. It changed me. It changed the person I am in such a positive way, and gave me so much understanding for other people. And we were all up there together, all different kinds of addictions, all different lifestyles. Some were quartered to be there, some were just there for the parents, and some really wanted to be there. And
Yeah.
it was really neat. I loved getting to know all of them. And what I was talking about, like, we get put in the hot seat, or so when I was in the hot seat, I couldn't process any of it, and I was get so confused and frustrated, and I spent more time, I feel like, crying when I was on the hot seat. But when someone else was on it, I could see every single one of us had so many commonalities that you wouldn't really expect from the different life things and places we were in life. But we had so many commonalities, and I could see so much of myself in them and their decisions, even though, some of we made different decisions or whatever. I learned so much watching other people get processed. We all did. And it was a really bonding, amazing experience because we all came to really understand each other. And you just see addiction completely different. You know, uh, and I was a mom, and some of these were like, younger, not, they weren't, one of them was actually under 18, but the rest were 18 and older. And just such different perspective, just seeing all of the different things that people have gone through. And it's not just this cut dry, like, oh, that person is a terrible person, you're addicted to this or that. It doesn't ever start it. Well, rarely does it start out that way. And a lot of times it's people trying to, and that was what we learned when we were first there. It's not so much about the addiction. It's about what is the underlying issue.
Yeah.
What is it? And that was so helpful for me because I had so much that I needed to work through, that was what I was trying to run away from. And I didn't understand healthy outlets and healthy ways to deal with the things I was dealing with. So I turned to alcohol, and so many of us, did that. You never start out thinking that this is where my life is going to go. And you can just find that human, the human in all of us. And we're not, these people weren't bad people, and you could understand why they did some of the things that they did, the more you got to understand them and their story. And it really helped me understand people and addiction, and not the judgment that just, I feel like it just gets, there's a lot of judgment around addiction and those kind of things. And when you really get to know the person and understand them and understand their story, a lot of times you're amazed that they are even still
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And
That's 100% sure. I mean, that was one of the reasons why I also wanted to start this show, because I was one of those people. I was one of those people that would go downtown and see the addicts or alcoholics or the unsheltered and make my little comments underneath my breath, and then here I am doing that when I was battling an 8-year weekend cocaine and alcohol use. And then also right after that, then my ex was going into alcoholism. And that's where really started kind of seeing, well, it took me a long time to see it, but to start understanding this whole thing, and having individuals on the show like yourself that shares their story, and you're going, my gosh, no wonder they did what they did, because I would probably have done that too, just so I didn't have to feel what I was feeling anymore. And
yeah.
it's I've heard many times through guests and also through training and different events that I've gone to, that it's not the drugs or alcohol, gambling or porn or eating or work or whatever it may be. That's just the Band-Aid. We're definitely all trying to do what we can to cover things up. And if anybody out there says that their life is 100% hunky dory, I would have to call bullshit on it, because life isn't supposed to run that way, and it doesn't run that way. We're all suffering from some kind of trauma inside of us.
And I'm actually, and I don't know, I'm actually grateful because of the hard things that I went through, because I learned so much more about me, about people, about life, and I'm so much happier and I think healthier, and I can understand things better. And if I hadn't gone through what I went through, I don't know where I would be. And I'm just happy to be where I am. It wasn't fun getting here, and I went through a lot of hardship. And I just am grateful for it because of who I've become. And I'm just a much better person. And I look back and I know you can't change things. You can't look back with regrets. But if I could have raised my kids with the knowledge that I have now and the person I am now, how different it would have been for them. But I can't change that. But I love that they do see me. They've seen me go from the bottom, just a terrible, horrible place. And they've seen me really work to get myself out of it. And so, and hopefully that, them seeing that also is teaching them and helping them in that way, because I can't go back and change anything, but all I can do is go from this point and try to do better and be better.
Well,
And yeah.
I don't know, my version of it is you're showing them the strength that you have, that you can overcome things, because they will have, as you know, they will have challenges come into their life. And I would think that they will go back and go, you know what? Mom did it. And if mom did it, I can do it. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, leave what's in the rearview mirror behind and just look of where things are at right now, because you actually may have wished things were different back when they were little, but who you are today and where you're at today and who they are today as being a little bit older, they get to understand a lot more, and they get to see the strength that you've had. We talked about that on the first show, about where this other individual was with her life and what she was doing when she was younger and her kids were younger. And now some of the things that her kids have come up to her and said to her, just, yeah, I mean, it tears at her heartstrings, because they've seen her battle, and they've seen that she has fought through it through thick and thin, and to where she's at. She's a much stronger woman today. She's a better mom today, a better wife today, better individual today. And I really do believe that those who go through recovery, whatever that recovery may be, doesn't have to be drugs and alcohol, it's any addiction, you do end up being, like the show says, the other side of it. and you become a person that you actually was this whole time, just not realizing it. There's something that happens. There's something that finally cracks and opens up. You know, it's like that egg gets that crack in it, but it's full of sunshine or light instead of a chicken. it starts it starts shining, and finally you just break it free. We have to chisel at ourselves for a while to get to that point.
And it's not easy to do.
Mm.
Because I know, like, for myself too, I would get very defensive when, like, when people are like, I had to really work through that. Like, when people would say things about me that I didn't want to hear, I would get defensive and I would want to defend and I've had to really learn to listen. They're especially like it depends on, you can know the person's intent. And if they're there and they are trying to help you see something, it's because they love and care about you. And it's worth it. It's so worth it when someone tells you something that you maybe don't want to hear or don't believe about yourself. I will take that and I won't just instantly go, oh, well, it depends on what it is. But sometimes I'll have to be like, let me think about that and take that time and really think about it and process what they're saying. And I probably 99% of the time end up going back and being like, thank you so much. I didn't recognize that I did that. And now I can understand it. And the more that I get to understand these things that I do that are, maybe toxic, or I don't feel like I feel like I've grown a lot more. I don't do a lot of, the things that I used to do that I feel like were probably toxic or not helpful or whatever it was, but just learning and understanding and changing that in myself and always wanting to learn about myself. And instead of going my normal instinct in the beginning to be defensive, instead now I really love to get that constructive criticism and I get to decide, if what I think of it, but most of the time it's it's life changing for me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I not see that I was doing that? Of course, that's not what I want to do. I don't want to make someone feel that way or, and just constantly like kind of reevaluating where I'm at and who I am. And if I'm being who I want to be and helping other people, like since all of this, like I've just been really passionate about wanting to help other people, whether it's an addiction or therapy kind of things. And I just finished a life coaching course that I'm still working on and is getting certified in. But I don't know. I just feel passionate about working with people and helping them because I understand now so much. I came from a place where I didn't understand, and I had a like one track mind, and I wouldn't look. I just did what I had, and my brain just opened up, and I love seeing people happy, and I love helping people, kind of get there and work through their things and
Yeah.
being positive and because it is we all go through these hard things and they can be so hard at the time, but when you use them as lessons and you grow, it's just an amazing thing. I can't believe how much I've grown in the last 5 years. It's been insane. I mean, I
Isn't
was
it
very, very codependent. And
isn't it amazing? It's like we get reborn again. I mean, that's kind of how it seems to me that, we first come into this world and we're growing up and our parents are doing their best to raise us the way that they think things need to go just because that's how they were raised as well and fight their parents were raised and so on and so forth.
yeah,
And we get this tunnel vision. We get this tunnel vision and it's not anyone's fault at all, but then something again starts knocking at us, and sometimes it can be really bad. It can be really bad trauma that really puts us into that different direction and that other path. And when we do start seeing things differently, it's like being reborn. I mean, when I lost my job of 24 years, almost 15 years ago, someone told me that I was a liar and a manipulator. And I said, bullshit. No, that's not true. And then I started evaluating things like what you said you did. And I realized they were 100% right. I grew up to learn how to lie and manipulate my way around things so I didn't get my butt kicked or so I could get whatever I wanted to get. And it really opened my eyes. And then now last 15 years, it's like I was reborn again. And now I've been working on a new me. And a lot of the coaching that I've had four different coaching things, and three out of the four told me to bring the little boy back out. Bring little Alan back out. Pick an age and just be that individual. And how did you see life? How did you look at life if you can remember? And if you can't, how do you see it right now? And it's crazy because I've used that on some of my clients now to where I'm like, I was with a client yesterday and we talked about that. She goes, last time you told me to pick an age and be this little girl again. And she's like, Al, it's like I see all this amazement in front of me, like I'm seeing things for the very first time. And that's what
I love
happens
that.
to us, right? I mean, really, I remember a picture my daughter sent to me of our granddaughter, and it was our very first granddaughter, and it was snowing, and she has a picture of her standing up at the sliding glass door by the patio, just like, what is this stuff that's falling from the sky? It's snowing. And that amazement, when we start looking at life that way, even as adults on a daily basis, that everything is so amazing out there, it does something to our life. I mean, it does something to our psyche. At least it has for me, to where it's life is a lot more enjoyable, and it's going to throw shitballs at us. That's what I like to say. It's going to throw shitballs at us, and it will continue to throw shitballs at us. Some we may dodge, some are going to hit us square in the face, and we're not going to like it. However, when we have that different perspective, it makes it so much easier to continue going down a direction that we want to go without hopefully making the bad choices.
I love that. I love all of that. I never even thought that, we did a little bit of shadow work going back, but I love that, like viewing things through the eyes of when you were a child. And that's a, that's a really great perspective. And I don't know. I love
Yeah.
it all. Like that's a really, really interesting way to look at things. And yeah, completely a little different, but recently I found myself remembering things from my childhood that I kind of, I don't know if I'd forgotten or kind of covered up, like some tough experiences, and just working through those and recognizing why I do some of the things that I have done is because of certain instances in my childhood that I didn't, all of a sudden just things are coming back to me, and recognizing that's why I react this way when this happens, or remembering that first time that something happened that made me curl up in a ball inside, and coming to, and just even just focusing on some of those experiences back then and dealing with it. It helps me now as an adult when I get into those experiences, be like, okay, you know what's going on, and kind of soothe through those. And it's completely different than what you're saying, but just like with going back to childhood, and but also like what you're saying, going back to those beautiful experiences and those when you were a child, and remembering like those magical times and bringing those into adulthood as well, and
Yeah.
seeing things through those eyes, those innocent, just I love kids. I absolutely adore kids, and it's because of their just sweet innocence, and they're just learning the world, exploring the world for the first time, and just there's just something so sweet about kids. And yeah, and just even going back to that in my own life and remembering those just beautiful moments of learning the world and how beautiful all of these things are, and seeing things for the first time. And
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. It's like, when you go to a park, I mean, how long has it been since you saw a playground at a park and you went over and went down the slide or you got on the swing, and I'll share something I've never really shared on the show. I like to go hiking, and there are times when I'll see a puddle and I just get a big grin on my face and I run over there and I just jump. in the
I love
puddle.
it.
Just because that's I loved doing that as a little boy. I loved splashing around after a rainstorm or riding my bike in a rainstorm. And, I just get this big smile on my face and run and just boom, just jump in the puddle. It's like, that's so fun. And, I got mud all over my legs or my pants or whatever, but it's okay. I don't care because it doesn't mean anything except that I'm just enjoying it. I enjoy being outside and having fun. And yeah,
I love that.
just does something to us. And that's one thing about having grandkids too. It's they really bring a lot of things out in you. Yeah, just amazing. That my three grandkids have changed. See the emotions kick up. My three grandkids have changed me so much. And it's just like what we talked about. It's just seeing who they are as individuals and them becoming themselves, right? And what they see and how they see it. And I tip my hat off to my daughter and son-in-law. They've done an amazing job with the kids, and they've allowed them to experience whatever it is that they want to experience. My youngest granddaughter decided all of a sudden she wants to try diving. So they put her in diving classes. Last year it was ice skating. She took up ice skating like she's been doing it for years. And it's just a
Wow.
different experience. However, we become adults. And Wendy, if your brain said, or your spirit spoke to you and says, Wendy, why don't you take skating lessons? The first thing that we do as adults, not saying this is what you would do, but what we do as adults, it's like, oh, no, no, I can't do that. And I don't want to go out on the ice and look really stupid. Because why? Because of what other people are thinking. We lose all that. When we're kids, we want it doesn't, I mean, we just want to experience. We don't know, we want to try it now, unless somebody says no, you can't do that. And there it happens, right? I read a story of a girl who used to sing all the time, and one time her mom came home in a very bad mood, just frustrated, and she was singing, and she just started yelling at her daughter, will you stop singing? You sound like shit. You cannot sing. The little girl never ever sang ever again until she got way up into her adulthood. And one day she just started singing, and someone heard it and said, my gosh, you got an amazing voice. So,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
we've got to be careful how well, even what we say to other individuals, because we can shut them down so quickly. And so many of us don't go towards our dreams or even a vision that we may have because of that fear. And I'm pretty sure you get this. The fear is the devil, the opposition's playground. Because
Yeah.
when we fear, that's when he keeps us away from the direction we're supposed to go. So I like to say, if it scares you, that's your sign to move forward.
I love that. That's very poignant to me right now, like with the life coaching and just trying to figure out my career because there is that fear, and that fear of failure and just all these fears, what if? And I love that. Just I've got to push through and have confidence in myself. And I think that is something that is sometimes hard for me, the confidence that I can do this. I could actually help people, I through my experience, I can do this, but I have the fear sometimes holds me back a lot. And so I love that. I love what you just said and everything about it. And I needed to hear that. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was the second time, Wendy, that really broke the camel's back where you kind of had that aha moment and
It was
things started
amazing. Yes.
changing.
Yes, because I was just me. I didn't have any connections with anything else. I was no marriage I was trying to work on. I just wanted to work on me. Sorry, I don't know where my watch is. But anyway, so I it was a whole new uh, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Just this liberation of it's just me. I get to work on me, and I've never just done it, a lot of things for me and I need this, and this is something I need so much. And my counselor, so each time I had a different therapist, and I really, really loved my counselor, my therapist this time. I still will go see him just every once in a while if I just need to work through any things or whatever. But he has become a really just amazing person in my life and a good friend. And he just really understood and was there. And it was almost like the first counselor was the one that really I needed to just get through and break through my shell. He was hard on me, and then this time going back, the new counselor that I had was kind of more what I needed at that time. And he was there to help me find what I wanted and who I was. And I'd already kind of worked through some of the other stuff, and just working on me and my thinking patterns and why I do these things. And um yeah, I just really I loved every part of both experiences, as hard as they were. And my therapist actually told me after I'd gone through all of it and everything, he said, well, I already knew that my husband at the time didn't think I'd make it through the first time. They like I don't know if they did bets, but he'd already told me that they didn't think I was gonna make it through. So, and that was never even a thought in my mind that I wouldn't make it through. But but he told me that yeah, they'd all the therapists, because they I guess they would sit down in group with all the group of the therapists. And I worked with many different therapists because we'd have different therapists when we were in group therapy. So they all kind of knew who we were and whatnot. And they did not think I would make it through the first time. And it just made me even more proud of myself, because that was never even a thought in my mind to give up or quit. And finding out that they all just didn't think I would make it, it just made me like, well, I definitely proved them wrong. I didn't know I was proving anyone wrong, but and it just made me like, I did that. And it was really hard. And I remember one time, because I got processed, you get processed more than once. And one time I just don't know, when I'm under that pressure, my brain just shuts down. I couldn't think, I couldn't understand, so I would just cry. And I remember this was in a group therapy, and they were like, Wendy, we can get on the phone right now and we can get you set up to go to a completely different uh center, and one where they're going to call you and they're going to, just tell you kind of, I don't know, like make you feel like more comfortable and way and like in your thinking and whatnot. And we can do that right now. We, I made that decision, and I said, no, I don't want that. I want to be here. So I stayed, and I'm so grateful that I did. Like, it was what I needed it, like what I needed showed up when I needed it. And it was hard, but it was so, so worth it. And it just changed my life in so many ways. And I'm such a better person. And I just had really great experiences in my life. I worked at the prison, and kind of like what we were talking about with addicts, how sometimes we see people like, oh, they're just bad, they deserve to be there. And all of these experiences really made me question in my mind, like, hold on, I've just been taught and told this my entire life, and so I've always thought this, but is that really true? And I got to work with some of the prisoners, and I just really respected so many of them, and they were not bad people. And they made mistakes, but they all, and I'm not saying that everyone there is the same, but the people I worked with were good people. And I got to see, like, it wasn't just this black and white. Things are not black and white, and that is how I grew up, was black and white thinking. And
Yeah.
finding all of the in-betweens and the color, and it's not just black and white. And there's so many different things to people. And I really enjoy getting to know people and their stories, because it helps me understand why they make the decisions they do. It doesn't make their decisions right or whatever, but it gives me some understanding of where, we still have to work through that on our own personal lives, like changing why we do the things we do. But when I can understand that in someone, it helps me understand them a little more. And I know how to help them, I guess, in a little bit too, in just seeing what they've gone through and why they respond the way they do, and how to work on responding, having healthier responses to things. And
Yeah. And who are the best people to help other individuals go through what they're going through? And it's those who have gone through it,
yeah,
because they understand it. I for years, the 8 or 9 years that my ex was battling her alcoholism, I was doing my best to be her therapist, not knowing anything about addiction. and I did a terrible job at it because again, I didn't know anything about addiction. Even though I battled with my weekend crap that I had, I still didn't understand. And it's hard for other people to understand unless you walk in those shoes. And still to this day, I'm no expert when it comes to addiction at all. I've taken my classes, I've been certified to be a crisis and recovery coach. However, it's not my place to get into the addiction part. It's my place to go and, okay, what are the slivers that's dug so damn deep in your skin? Let's figure out where these slivers are at, and let's see if we can get these things to fester and pop out, because you got to get rid of them. So,
Love that.
yeah.
I'll have to find out more information about that from you for the course. That sounds like an interesting, like, I really think that I want to work in recovery in some sort of way. And so I've been trying to figure out, and that's like I've done working on this life coaching course, but just the more that I can learn and understand it, I love feeling like I know more about however I can help people and whatnot in the best ways. So I love that you're doing that too.
Yeah. And what led me to this, which was really interesting, because a few people throughout the years have talked about me possibly being a coach and that, and I wasn't interested. I just wanted to do my podcast, wanted to do speaking events, and hopefully get to where I could make a living at it. And I had some guests on my show, and what intrigued me about when they reached out to me and asked if they could be a guest, looking at their website, they were all about the brain first approach. And that really intrigued me because, like we've been saying throughout this show, it's not the drugs or the alcohol or the porn or the sex or the eating, the gambling, which I say this all the time on the show, but it's so true. It's just that we're using this to cover up something else. Like your actions, your choices was because you loved your husband still and you wanted to keep your marriage, and you were willing to sacrifice your happiness because of it. And because of that, alcohol started grabbing a hold of you and started taking you down a different road. And I love that choice of the brain first approach, because a lot of us don't realize this, and I didn't realize it till I took the training. We have control of this. It doesn't have control of us, but we allow this to control us. Once we start having certain tools and we start understanding things a little bit better, my gosh, it's amazing what we can do and what we can accomplish and what we can change.
It, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
No,
Keep
no,
going.
not at all.
No, because what you're saying is exactly like all of it. Like I remember when I was in therapy and recognizing, oh my gosh, I have control. Yeah, I just let my brain control me. Like I have control over this. I can control my thinking. I can control my responses. That was such a huge thing to me to understand. Like I can change how I think. I don't know why it sounds like such a simple thing that you'd think I would have thought of or realized, but until I went there, I was like, I can change how I respond to things. I can change how I think. Yeah, and that was a huge thing. Like what you're saying, like we are in control of our brains, and I was basically letting what I could always learn control how I responded to everything instead
Yeah.
of realizing I can change what I've learned. I can change how I do things and think. And that is very powerful to know.
Yeah. Our subconscious mind is there to protect us. It doesn't know what's real and what's fake. All it knows is that however we responded to something at one time, that's how we're supposed to respond again when it happens to us.
Yes.
Not realizing that we can go, wait a minute, I don't need to go this direction. And what's hard though, as adults, it takes us longer to bind those neurons, and to unplug the unhealthy ones and plug new ones in. When we're children, it's much quicker. There's an awesome video on YouTube, The Backwards Bike. I highly suggest to pull it up and watch it. It's a very short clip, the backwards bike. And I won't tell you kind of how it goes, but this gentleman is trying to ride this backward bike. It took him 8 months to finally figure out how to ride this bike. His 5 or 6 year old son picked it up in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Why? Because the dad had ridden a normal bike for how many years? So his brain was used to doing this, and he had to retrain the brain to go a different direction when his son hadn't only done it for a short period of time. So it was easier for him to change.
Yeah. That
What was crazy is once he figured out how to ride it, he went to go back to ride a normal bike. He couldn't ride the normal bike. Now, his
it's
brain
crazy.
kicked in a little quicker because he had done it
Yeah.
long. It only took him about 20 minutes to finally start getting it again. But it goes to show how powerful this brain is, to where we can change it. It's just changing our behaviors, changing how we think, changing how we look at things. And before we know it, all that other stuff now is buried deep. It's still there. It's not going to go away, but we've pushed it aside enough to where now we've got healthier neurons to help us go in certain directions that we want to go.
Yes, all of that. I love it. And that's something, sorry, I don't know if we are short on time or how we're doing on time, but I've been a people pleaser like my entire life. I kind of just, it was kind of how a lot of us women, I think, grew up in the environment that we were in. And it has been the hardest thing to try and undo. And I'm consciously working on it daily and all the time. And when I recognize that I'm doing something that I normally wouldn't have done, where I was like, oh, I can't do that. I don't want to hurt, but I'm sticking to what feels right to me and what I want, and not worrying about everyone else and going, what do I want? And when I do that, every time I'm like, oh my gosh, I just did that. I would never have done this before. Like, I just can consciously be like, I am so proud of myself. Before I would have done these things that I was not feeling well to do or didn't want to do just because I didn't want to make other people unhappy, but I didn't want to do it. And finally, I'm just learning, like, what do I want? I don't need to make everyone else happy. What does Wendy want? And it has been a huge thing for me to start finally understanding and working on and being proud of and I am I'm proud of myself for finally standing up for myself and caring about what I want and what I need instead of everyone else. And but it's a conscious thing you have to work on and recognize, and and
Yeah.
finally, I think they say it takes like 3 months at least, or something. That's something I've heard, to make a new pattern or a new change things, and do it enough times that it becomes more natural to do. And so just, yeah, like constantly working on these things and just recognizing the changes is amazing.
Yes, it is. And good for you for telling yourself that you're proud of yourself. I mean, seriously, good for you for doing that, because that's just boosting more of that encouragement to go, I can do things. I can do anything that I want. And we talked about on the first show about being selfish, and for someone who used to be very selfish, as I was learning on working on me to become a different person, that was something that I really stayed away from. I was in your area to where, okay, I'm going to do everything I can to please everyone because I was a liar and a manipulator before, not realizing I was still hurting myself. Because when I'm at a point in my life to where I don't look highly enough about myself and care enough about myself, how can I do that for others? I can't. I cannot forgive other individuals for doing damage or harm to me if I can't even forgive myself for doing certain things that I've done. And I can't give all my love 100% to one individuals or to all my friends if I don't have all that love for me. Now, the selfless selfishness to where if Wendy's cold and I got a nice coat on and she's cold and she would like my coat, and I'm like, no way, because it's cold outside. You ain't taking my coat. I'm nice and cozy. That's one thing. So, but we still have to love and care about ourselves, because when we do that, we admit so much more of that out into the world and help so many other individuals.
Yep.
It's so amazing how it happens. It just happens. It just happens somehow.
Right. It really does. And it's amazing. It's amazing to look back and see like how far we've come, and and it is good to be proud of, like, 'cause it is a lot of work it can be to really change these habits that you've done for your entire life, and recognizing those things and actively working to change them. And when you just see yourself doing it without having to actively like make sure you're doing it, it's started to become a habit of doing these things. And it's like, wow, I just did that. I would never have done this before. And I'm so proud of it's kind of like, I can't believe I just did that. I put myself first for once. Like, I'm so used to making sure everyone else was happy and everything else, their lives are good. And I actually, I love like recognizing that I finally love myself because I didn't love myself. And just, I love myself now enough to put myself and my needs and
Yeah,
know that they're important too. And just, yeah, just seeing these little things that you're working on just actually starting to work and make sense and make me a better person. And you can't give from an empty cup, and I was always trying to give from an empty cup, and then that didn't work. You have to fill your own cup first. And
yeah. I love that you said that. I shared that on the show this morning, that that thing about holding up a cup. If you could see through this and the water's here, is this water half full or half empty? Or if this cup is half full or half empty. And I saw a little clip on this, and the professor that was doing it actually had a bucket and he poured all the water out. And he goes, "Now what is it? Is it half full or half empty?" And the students were kind of quiet, and he says, "It's refillable." And I went, "Oh my gosh, that is so powerful. That is so powerful. We can dump our cups out anytime if we don't like what's in it, and we can refill it with anything we want to refill it with."
oh, I
Because
love
that's
that.
basically what the whole theory was behind how he put that. And it's so true. We have the capability to do whatever it is, and change. I had a beautiful lady on my show who worked in the sex industry, and come to find out, all she wanted to do was be seen. That's it. She just wanted to be loved and be seen for who she was, and not as an object, or as, look who's next to me, which basically was an object, right? She'd date guys that just used her as an object because she was so pretty. And she's worked her butt off to change where she's at in her life today, and know that she is being seen as who she is as a person. And it's hard because there are certain individuals that she'll run into her that still see that past person. However, she's starting to gather the tools in her tool pouch to be able to now manage these situations in a lot better way, to where she's not falling back into the
I
other.
love that.
Yeah.
And that's amazing, like what you were talking about, the tools. That was what I needed. That's exactly what I needed, was the tools to in there, whatever that I learned up in recovery. That's what I learned up there, was the tools that help me now when I like, and you were saying before, like now when we get into these situations that we maybe have been in before, we have the tools and we're more prepared, and it's so different, and we learning to respond different, and just learning the tools to be able to work through things and work through things healthily. And it makes such a difference when you can
Yeah,
do that.
big difference. Wendy, is there anything else you'd like to share before we sign out? It's, believe it or not, we've gone a little over an hour. It goes by so fast when you're in such
I
amazing company and great conversation.
I know I could sit and talk forever, and I'm like, and I love talking about this. I'm like, yeah, I could go forever. So you have to cut me off.
I'm with you on
I
that
do.
one.
I do like to make sure that people know, because I don't want to come across as some kind of hypocrite. I do still drink, and I just have to. I'm just very careful with my drinking, and I pay attention and have to cut myself. I don't drink daily. I don't. I've
Hmm.
learned to manage it, but I don't like to. For people when they hear I went to rehab or recovery, that I don't want them to think that I am not drinking anymore. I needed the recovery more for what was going on underneath. And now I'm able to have more of a healthy relationship and with my drinking, and just not using it as an outlet. Is I
Yeah,
can do it as like just once on the weekend or whatever, just to relax or whatever, and enjoy, but it's never something that I rely on anymore because I used to, like, when I get upset, that would be my outlet. I'm upset, and I drink, and it would make it worse. But as long as I know that I always am very conscious, am I drinking just to relax? Okay, well then I'll be able to drink, one night on the weekend, or go out with friends. But become, it's been a completely different kind of, it's not the addiction anymore, I guess. If you
yeah. Well, and again, your story is your story. And I hope our listeners, and I believe most of our listeners understand that your journey is your journey. What you do, if it works for you, it works for you. It's not, even for me, it's not my place to go, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you're doing that, right?
But
From
that's the people pleaser in me right there.
Yes, well, and you said at the start you went to Wasatch, which is a wonderful facility. I had another good friend who went there, who had no drinking, no drug issue, nothing. She went there just to work on herself. Period. That was it. My ex-wife went to Wasatch as well. I know Mark Richards, and I know Todd Sylvester, and
Oh my gosh, yes. I love
yeah,
Todd.
great people. Yeah, Todd's an
They're all
amazing
good people.
individual. And so again, it's not anybody anyone's place, and it's great that you went to a facility to work on you, because I mean you can do that, right? I mean, you don't have to have a drug or alcohol or porn or eating or gambling addiction to go to a recovery place to work on yourself. At least a place like Wasatch that helps you with that.
Yeah. And actually, the second time I went there, it was more, I wasn't dealing as much with the alcohol. I did go there the second time because I wanted the therapy. I knew the therapy that I had the
Mhm.
first time, and I knew I needed more of that. And I wanted more of that. And that was the second time I went, it was more based on more of exactly that. Just I knew how much it helped me work through what I needed to work through.
Yeah. So what are your final thoughts with all this? Where are you heading now? Where's your
Now,
life taking you?
well, that's what I'm actually trying to figure out, because I really am debating about just starting working in recovery, just finding a job in recovery. I just love working with people, and I love helping people through my experiences. And so that I've got to finish up this. That's what I'm kind of in that middle, like, where do I want to take this? Because I just have a huge heart, and I just love trying to help and work with people who really want to do the work that, are, and are willing to put in the work. And so I've going to work on this life coaching course, which it's an amazing course, and they're taking it into prisons, and that is huge for me because I worked in the prison, and I know that they could use the help in there too, and we all just need the help, and I'm passionate about helping. And so I want to start working on doing maybe some of it in the prison, um, the life coaching, the program that they're doing there, and then maybe doing some, just on my own with people. But I don't know. I'm happiest when I'm helping people. It just brings out my happiness. And just, I've been sick for this most of this year with mono, and it just has really brought me down. Even though I was able to process and work through a lot of things, now I'm just ready, and I need to be out, and I need to be doing something that is helping others. And so just trying to figure out how to do that in the best way, because I I love it.
That's awesome. Good for you. Good for you. Well, I'll be here on this other side rooting you on. And yeah, if you ever have any questions or anything, you and I talk on social media, feel free to reach out. And there's some things that I'm working on my end as well, and wanting to go some direction. And I've got some other people that I think are on board and want to do some things that are different as well. And yeah, So,
I
thank you so
appreciate
much.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be a guest and to be vulnerable. It takes a lot for someone to be vulnerable and open up and share a part of their life you know, that they didn't really care for, that they may be ashamed because I like to say, once you cut that string off that carrot that's dangling over your head, no one can hold it over your head ever again. And it's so true, and it gives you back the power of your life. So it takes a lot for individuals to come on a show and share a part of their life. And I just appreciate you and all my other guests. So thank you.
Thank you, Al. I really appreciate you. I appreciate all the work you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Amazing.
Well, guys, again, here's another amazing show. Thank you to all our guests, all our past guests, all our past sponsors, and really thank you to all our listeners. You guys are the ones that are making all this possible. Thank you for all your love and support. And remember to mark your calendars for Saturday, October 5th for the fourth Healing Utah Success Summit in Sandy, Utah. You can go to Ruesch, Ruesch, recovery.com. Get your tickets. They're only $25, I believe. Heck, I'm the co-founder of this thing, and I may not even remember what our price was, but I think they're $25. Pretty sure that they are. Come and check out an amazing event. We've got some really killer speakers for you guys to listen to, and we've got some great vendors. And thank you. I'm just going to give a shout out. Thank you to Red Barn for coming in as one of our main sponsors. So thank you guys. Really, Michael Haas and all you guys out there. We love and appreciate you. We're going to leave you with this as we do at the end of every show. Remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.